What you're seeing on screen now is a new project by a PhD student from San Diego. He calls it Television, and it offers the ability to control a robot remotely from anywhere in the world. Open sourced, no less. Here's a human-like robot hand that uses tubes and heat to operate, which was introduced 4 days ago as of writing. Then just 9 days ago, a Figure 1 update showing how it can now autonomously help build BMWs, a real use case. Starting to notice a trend? The number of new robotics companies is on an exponential rise, with the industry revenue currently being an estimated $43 billion, a number that is expected to rise to $66 billion in 2028, an increase of 50% in just 4 years. A robotics boom is on the horizon and the investors seem to know it. So where exactly is this robotics boom going to take us? And why should we care about these remote robots? Let's have a look into this. Before we can even begin to understand the significance of this new technological boom, we need to go over some brief history in this field. In the year 1961, the first robot ever was put to work, doing a combination of welding and metalwork for the car manufacturer General Motors, and it was ever since that turning point that people knew that robots were going to play a big role in our future. Cut to the 21st century and there's suddenly this huge demand to see a humanoid robot come to life. Boston Dynamics announced their infamous Atlas in 2013, which was state-of-the-art at the time of release, a move which solidified their status as the leader in this world of robotics. And despite the huge demand for development in humanoid robots, this way of doing things was by no means the most efficient, but people respond better when these machines look more like humans, with one study saying, research has shown that robots equipped with a human-like physical appearance increase users' level of trust in and acceptance of robot technology. So whether the companies designing the technology liked it or not, this was going to be the way going forward.
What we are potentially talking about is nothing less than the end of human history.
So now that we understand the fundamentals of where this all began, what's causing this sudden surge over the last few years specifically? The simple answer? ChatGPT. OpenAI originally introduced ChatGPT in November of 2022, which was running on their best model at the time, GPT 3.5, and this release took the world by storm. ChatGPT gained unseen popularity, hitting 100 million users in just 2 months, compared to TikTok's 9 months for the same number of 100 million users, and it was clear to see why. People were blown away by its capabilities, and it wasn't just for show. Students all around the world started using it to do their schoolwork, and there were even reports of teachers using it to mark said work. But you already knew about ChatGPT. After all, it did release almost 2 years ago, so why bring it up now? And how does it link back to robotics? Well, ChatGPT was largely responsible for reigniting the whole conversation surrounding artificial intelligence. For decades, writers imagined a world in which robots and men lived amongst each other, and even a world in which our intelligence was dwarfed when compared to AI, and it felt for the first time ever we were finally getting a glimpse into that future becoming our reality. But the CEOs, shareholders, and hell, even the government were not going to let it go unnoticed. The release of GPT made all these important organizations realize that AGI, or artificial general intelligence, was only an arm's reach away, literally, because what followed and what we're currently living through can only be described as an arms race. But this fresh competition for world-dominating technology between the countries in the world, mainly China and the US, wasn't just restricted to AI, because there's one other area that goes hand in hand with artificial intelligence when it comes to these world-changing results. And you guessed it, it's robotics. More specifically in this case, humanoid robotics. Although the production of other types like the robot dogs we're seeing produced shouldn't go unnoticed, the real money of this competition lies in the humanoids, not to mention the government's desire for easily producible foot soldiers if it ever came to it. So just to summarize, the race is on for AGI, and consequently the race is also on for a body that AGI can live in happen once it's here. Don't believe me? Remember Boston Dynamics Atlas that we touched on earlier, the one that took the world by storm? Well, Boston Dynamics scrapped it, a move that could be seen as unexplainable to people on the outside. But once you understand the direction we're heading in, the logic is clear. Just a few days after announcing the discontinuation of the original Atlas, they posted a video announcing the new and improved Atlas, a new robot that was designed specifically, at least in my opinion, to accommodate a new AI brain. The new Atlas saw a far less bulky design compared to its predecessor. When comparing it to the original, it's far easier to see this Atlas inside of homes across the world. In just 2024 alone, we saw the announcement or introduction of over 37 new humanoid robots, an unseen number of progress up to this point. Among this extensive list, there are a few notable mentions. Robots which you might expect to see wandering our streets, working our jobs, or generally being economically productive in just a few short years. We already touched on the new Atlas robot, which, judging by its announcement video, you can expect to be on the upper end of the cost spectrum. And on the other end, you have robots like H1 from the Chinese company Unitree, which is built in a more cost-effective way. However, that being said, the Unitree H1 still comes in at an extremely steep price tag of $90,000. With prices like that, you could be tricked into convincing yourself that no major company could ever try and go down this route, because although us pesky humans may have rights, human labor is still extremely cheap. But this way of thinking is simply a mistake. Agility Robotics is the company behind the warehouse robot Digit, and Digit is able to carry out many of the physical tasks that human workers already do. And although you'd be right in saying that in the present Digit isn't going to be filling out any paperwork, what it will be doing is taking the jobs of many warehouse workers, or as Amazon claims, working beside them and not replacing them. We'll see how long that lasts. According to Amazon, they currently utilize the help of more than 750,000 robots working quote-unquote collaboratively with human staff, doing what they refer to as highly repetitive tasks. And the cost of operating Digit? Research by Bloomberg News estimates that Digit has a lifespan of about 20,000 hours, and as a result, operating Digit costs between $10 to $12 an hour, a salary that is already lower than that of the median warehouse worker. And if that's not enough to convince you already, the Agility Robotics CEO has previously stated that the company is expecting the cost of Digit to drop closer to the $2 to $3 range in the foreseeable future. It's hard to ignore the potential of Digit under these circumstances. So we've discussed that large corporations have an interest in deploying robots to do what was previously human labor, but how exactly does this link to what we talked about in the beginning? Well, the answer is simple. If deployed effectively, we'd begin to see the next generation of remote work. While the CEOs wait for affordable robots to carry out these repetitive tasks, outsourcing the work will still be an easy way to get the job done while still saving a quick buck. Just as immigration has always been favorable to businesses looking to squeeze employees out of every penny, because what might be considered a low wage for an average citizen could seem like a lot to someone who came from a poor country. But the ability for businesses to source remote workers for physical work is something that's just not been possible up to this point. For example, the average worker in India makes just 180 rupees an hour, the equivalent of $2.16. Even if you had to pay a few dollars more than this, as if this were a specialist role, you'd still be saving astronomical amounts. Companies are addicted to cheap labor, and it's how places like China managed to get where they are today, with China being known as the world's factory. In fact, a study in 2024 found that China's share of global manufacturing is as high as 31%. For reference, the second biggest manufacturer was the United States, with just 15% or half of China's output. So where possible, businesses will take advantage to save money. And as if things weren't looking bad enough for us on the human team, unfortunately this is only half the story. You see, AI uses something called machine learning, where it's fed vast amounts of data in order to pick up on patterns and learn in a similar way that humans do. The key difference being that the amount of data an AI needs to learn to carry out a task, at least competently, is extremely large, while on the other hand, humans are able to learn given just a few examples. So while it may not be enough for an AI to learn from a single worker, let's say stacking shelves for a year, it becomes infinitely easier if you capture the daily data from 1 million remote put workers in this role every day. Use that for your training data and it won't take long before artificial intelligence is able to take the wheel. But I can already hear some of you saying that your job will be safe. Perhaps you're a dentist or a surgeon, and sure, you might be right for now. The truth is that when a robot is able to do what you do with more precision and a higher success rate, your job will no longer be yours. And the ramifications on the economy is such a large topic of debate, with many arguing for a universal basic income or to just stop the production of a superintelligence in its tracks. One temptation is to brush the whole thing off because it will take a long time before everyone loses their jobs. But what a lot of people don't realize is that in order for the economy to collapse, only around 30% of people need to lose their jobs. The unemployment rate during the Great Depression was only 24.9%, and I'm sure you don't need to be reminded about how that was the worst recession in modern history. Now, even though I've just talked about how bad things could end up, it's important that we remain hopeful. No one knows what's going to happen in the future for certain, and we've got a lot of smart people trying to prevent such economic collapse, because it wouldn't be good for anyone. But that being said, if it were to come down to it, what jobs are the best to be in right now? Well, originally it was thought that creative jobs such as digital design would be the most safe, but over the last few years, we've quickly realized that we were wrong, and arguably the safest type of jobs you could be in at the moment are blue-collar jobs, working with your hands, doing anything from construction to plumbing. Other than that, jobs that require incredible precision and training like surgeons will likely be the last to go, as it will likely take a while before people trust AI with such important jobs, even when they're able to do so on paper. And if you're worried, just remember that we're in this together. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Thanks for listening.